Do it, but someone might see. The cowboy did it, and the whole town froze. The town of Dry Creek was small, dusty, and slow-moving. It sat quietly between the hills and the wide-open plains, where the wind whispered through the grass and carried the smell of horses and hay. Life here was simple, predictable, and sometimes boring. But everyone knew each other, and everyone had a story. People left their doors unlocked during the day, and neighbors waved from porches as they went about their work. Children played near the river. Dogs chased sticks across the dirt streets, and the sound of hooves was as common as the crowing of roosters. In this quiet town lived a young cowboy named Sam. He was tall, strong, and confident, with broad shoulders from years of working with horses and a smile that could charm even the sternest townsfolk. Sam was known across Dry Creek for being brave, clever, and sometimes reckless. He had a way of making the ordinary seem exciting. The townspeople admired him for his courage, but some also worried about his boldness. On this particular morning, the sun rose slowly over the hills, casting golden light on the dusty streets. The air was crisp, with just a hint of warmth as the day began. Sam walked into town, his boots kicking up little clouds of dust, his hat tilted just enough to keep the sun out of his eyes. He carried himself with ease, and people stopped what they were doing to watch him pass. Some nodded in greeting. Others whispered to one another, "There goes Sam again," always in some kind of trouble or adventure. The heart of the town was the old saloon. Its wooden walls had weathered many storms, and its swinging doors creaked loudly every time someone entered. Inside, the scent of coffee, leather, and wood smoke filled the air. Townsfolk sat at tables, drinking their morning coffee, or quietly talking about the latest news. The saloon was the place where gossip traveled fastest, and everyone had a story to tell. Sam stepped inside and immediately drew the attention of the crowd. His eyes sparkled with a mix of mischief and confidence, and the townspeople sensed that something was about to happen. He nodded to the bartender, a friendly man named Joe, who was wiping a mug with a rag. "Morning, Sam," Joe said with a smile. "What brings you in so early?" "Just checking in," Sam replied, leaning against the bar. "Heard there's talk of someone being brave today." The townsfolk chuckled. Talk of bravery in Dry Creek usually meant someone would try a simple trick or a small stunt, but Sam had a way of turning ordinary things into extraordinary events. He had once jumped his horse over the barn roof just for fun, and people still talked about it years later. As Sam looked around the room, his eyes met those of a local man named Tom. Tom was older, with a weathered face from years in the sun, and he liked to think of himself as the wisest man in town. He had a sharp tongue and enjoyed teasing young men who thought they were bold. "You think you're brave, huh, Sam?" Tom asked with a grin, leaning on his cane. "I've seen a lot in this town, and I've seen men fall flat on their faces too." "Do it, but someone might see." The words were meant as a challenge, but also a warning. Everyone in the saloon froze for a moment, curious about what Sam would do. There was a tension in the room, a quiet excitement that made even the children peeking through the windows hold their breath. Sam smiled, a slow, confident smile that made it clear he had heard the challenge and was ready. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he looked around at the people watching him, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make everyone wonder what he would do next. The saloon felt suddenly smaller, as if all the air had been sucked out and every eye was fixed on him. Finally, he spoke. "If it's a stunt you want to see, Tom, you'll get more than that," he said, his voice calm but strong. The townsfolk exchanged glances, some excited, others nervous. Children pressed closer to the windows, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was about to happen. Even the mayor, who rarely left his office, peeked out of his window to watch the scene unfold. After a moment, Sam stepped back outside. The sun was higher now, casting long shadows across the dirt streets. People followed, curious and eager to see what the cowboy had planned. Horses in their stables nickered softly as if sensing the excitement in the air. Dogs ran alongside children who laughed and shouted, adding to the energy of the town. Sam walked calmly toward the old wooden bridge that stretched across the river at the edge of town. The bridge was old, with boards that creaked underfoot and ropes that swayed in the wind. It was not dangerous for someone careful, but for a stunt it was perfect. It demanded skill, courage, and a steady hand. As Sam approached, he stopped and looked down at the river below. The water sparkled in the sunlight, reflecting the sky like a mirror. He could feel the wind on his face, cool and refreshing, and he took a deep breath, steadying himself. He was not just thinking about the stunt. He was thinking about the people watching, about the town, about the story that would be told for years to come. Meanwhile, townsfolk gathered along the streets, peeking from windows, leaning over fences, and climbing small hills to get a better view. Every face showed a mix of fear, excitement, and anticipation. Even the skeptics could not look away. Sam's actions had a way of captivating everyone, pulling them into the moment and making them forget their daily worries. Children whispered to each other, "Do you think he will really do it? And I hope he doesn't get hurt." Adults held their breath, remembering past adventures of the young cowboy. Some shook their heads, saying softly, "Only Sam would dare something like this," while others smiled, secretly proud of the bravery on display. Tom, the man who had challenged Sam, leaned on his cane and watched carefully. He was curious to see if Sam would live up to his reputation, or if he would falter. "Let's see if you can really do it," he muttered, almost to himself. There was respect in his tone, even though he tried to sound skeptical. Sam didn't rush. He took his time, checking his horse, the bridge, and the surrounding area. Every movement was deliberate, showing his experience and care. This was not a reckless act done for show. It was a calculated risk, a test of skill and courage. He adjusted his hat, brushed some dust off his boots, and gave his horse a gentle pat. The horse, a strong and steady companion named Thunder, whinnied softly, sensing the excitement around them. Sam smiled at the animal, knowing that the trust between man and horse was part of the stunt. Without Thunder's strength and calmness, the feat would not be possible. As the crowd watched, Sam mounted the horse with ease. He guided Thunder to the edge of the bridge, feeling the wood sway slightly under their weight. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves and adding a dramatic backdrop to the scene. Every eye in the town followed his movements, and the air was thick with anticipation. Sam looked back at the crowd, giving them a small nod, almost like a silent promise that something amazing was about to happen. Children gasped softly, and adults held their breath. Even the birds in the trees seemed to pause, as if sensing the importance of the moment. Then, without hesitation, Sam began his approach. He walked Thunder slowly across the bridge, making sure each step was careful and precise. The old boards creaked and the ropes swayed, but Sam remained calm and confident. The tension built with every step, and the townsfolk could hardly look away. For the people of Dry Creek, this moment was more than just a stunt. It was a test of courage, a reminder that bravery could still exist in everyday life. The cowboy, with his calm demeanor and careful skill, had captured their attention and inspired their imagination. Children whispered in awe. Adults exchanged impressed glances, and even the skeptics felt a sense of pride and excitement. By the time Sam reached the center of the bridge, the entire town was watching. No one spoke, no one moved. It was as if time had slowed, and all that mattered was the cowboy and his horse standing boldly in the sunlight. This was the first part of an adventure that would be remembered, talked about, and retold for years. The story of Dry Creek and the daring cowboy had begun, and the town could already feel that something unforgettable was about to unfold. Sam had accepted the challenge, faced the warning, and stepped into a moment that would define him and the town forever. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, shining brightly over Dry Creek. The town seemed to hold its breath after Sam had approached the old wooden bridge. People whispered to each other, their voices filled with curiosity and nervous excitement. Every eye in the town followed him as he checked the bridge, his horse, and the surrounding area. The moment had already captured their attention, but the anticipation was only growing. Sam walked Thunder slowly back and forth at the edge of the bridge. He wanted to make sure everything was safe. The boards were old, but they were strong enough to hold both horse and rider if he moved carefully. He tested a few steps, listening to the creaking sound beneath the hooves. It was the kind of noise that made people nervous, but Sam remained calm, showing the townsfolk that courage came with preparation, not just boldness. As he prepared, townspeople began gathering more closely around the bridge. Children ran to the front of the crowd, pressing against the fence, their eyes wide with excitement. Mothers held younger children in their arms, making sure they were safe, while fathers leaned on fences, discussing in quiet voices whether Sam was really going to attempt the stunt. Some whispered words of encouragement. Others shook their heads, unsure if they should admire bravery or worry for his safety. Tom, the older man who had teased Sam in the saloon earlier, moved closer to the edge, using his cane to steady himself. He squinted at Sam and muttered under his breath, "I hope he knows what he's doing." That boy is brave, but bravery alone isn't always enough. His eyes, however, betrayed curiosity, and a hint of respect lingered beneath the words. Even the town sheriff had paused his morning patrol to see what would happen. It wasn't every day that something so daring was attempted in Dry Creek. Sam mounted Thunder once again, taking a moment to connect with his horse. He patted the animal's neck and whispered, "You ready for this, buddy?" Thunder whinnied softly, moving his ears back and forth as if acknowledging the task. Their bond was strong, built on months of riding together, understanding each other without many words. The townsfolk noticed this too. A horse that trusted its rider could make even the most dangerous stunts seem possible. Before taking the next step, Sam looked over his shoulder at the crowd. He saw children holding their breath, women clutching their aprons, and men leaning forward, their curiosity intense. He smiled faintly, a mix of reassurance and determination. It was important to him that the town knew this was not just a reckless act. He wanted them to see skill, courage, and respect for the task at hand. Sam guided Thunder to the center of the bridge. Each step was measured, careful, and precise. The boards creaked under the weight of horse and rider, sending tiny echoes through the air. The river below sparkled in the sunlight, reflecting every movement in 1,000 tiny ripples. The sound of rushing water mixed with the occasional bird call, creating a natural soundtrack for the moment. As he moved, Sam noticed some townsfolk shifting nervously. They were unsure whether to cheer, whisper, or just watch in silence. Some held onto fences as if their grip could somehow protect him from harm. Children leaned against their parents wide-eyed, whispering, "Do you think he'll make it? And I hope he doesn't fall." Adults, too, felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. They had grown accustomed to the slow pace of life in Dry Creek, and moments like this broke the routine in the most thrilling way. Sam stopped briefly at the middle of the bridge and looked down at the river. The water ran swiftly over rocks, and the sunlight made it sparkle like diamonds. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, letting the moment sink in. This pause, small as it was, made the tension almost unbearable for the spectators. Some covered their mouths with their hands, not wanting to interrupt the quiet, while others leaned forward, desperate to see what would happen next. Then Sam took another step, moving Thunder slowly toward the far end of the bridge. Every board under their hooves held firm, and the old ropes swayed slightly with the weight and movement. He whispered to his horse, guiding him carefully, and Thunder responded with trust and precision. The relationship between the cowboy and his horse was evident to everyone watching. The animal's calmness and strength added a layer of reassurance, showing that courage often came in partnership. People began whispering to each other about the careful preparation. "Look how steady he is," one woman said, nodding approvingly. "He's not rushing. That's why I think he'll make it."
A young boy pointed at Sam and said, "I want to be like him when I grow up."
"He's so brave." The crowd's murmurs were filled with admiration, and the sense of community grew stronger as they watched someone they knew take a bold step. Tom, still leaning on his cane, shook his head slowly. "I have to admit," he murmured, "that boy knows what he's doing. I didn't think he'd be this careful." His skepticism was giving way to genuine respect, and the townsfolk noticed the change in his expression. Even those who doubted Sam could see that his bravery was paired with skill, making the stunt less risky and more impressive. As Sam moved closer to the end of the bridge, he adjusted his posture, making sure he was balanced and ready for what came next. He could feel the wind picking up slightly, brushing against his face and hat. It was the kind of wind that could distract an unsteady rider. but Sam welcomed it. The natural elements added to the drama of the moment, making the stunt feel even more significant. He spoke quietly to Thunder again. "Almost there, buddy. Stay steady." The horse responded with a soft whinny and a steady step forward. The trust between them was clear to the spectators. It wasn't just a stunt. It was a demonstration of harmony, teamwork, and confidence built over time. Children gasped softly, feeling the intensity of the moment, while adults whispered words of encouragement under their breath. Suddenly, a loose plank creaked louder than the others. The crowd tensed. Some stepped back instinctively, fearing a mistake, while others froze, unable to move. Sam's eyes flicked to the plank, assessing it quickly. He shifted his weight slightly, guiding Thunder carefully over it. The horse responded perfectly, keeping his balance and moving forward without hesitation. A collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd. The tension eased slightly, but the excitement remained high. Sam reached the far end of the bridge and stopped briefly. He looked at the crowd, their faces filled with awe and amazement. Children clapped softly. Women smiled and men nodded in approval. Even the skeptical Tom gave a small, reluctant clap, acknowledging that the young cowboy had handled the task with skill and courage. The moment was small but significant. It wasn't just about completing the stunt. It was about showing that bravery could be paired with wisdom, preparation, and respect for the challenge. The crowd began to relax slightly, but they still watched carefully as Sam guided Thunder back toward the middle of the bridge. Every step was deliberate, showing that he was in control, and that the stunt was far from over. People leaned forward again, eager to see how he would finish. The tension and excitement in Dry Creek were palpable. As he reached the center, Sam paused once more. He looked down at the river, the sun glinting off the water like tiny sparks of gold. The town seemed to hold its breath again, captivated by the calm determination of the young cowboy. The children whispered softly, "He's amazing," while adults exchanged impressed glances. It was a moment that brought the entire community together, united in admiration and suspense. Sam's preparation, patience, and skill had turned what could have been a reckless stunt into a performance of courage and control. The townsfolk realized that bravery was not just about taking risks blindly. It was about understanding the danger, preparing carefully, and moving with confidence. The young cowboy had taught them all a lesson without saying a word. By the time Sam guided Thunder to the edge of the bridge again, the crowd's whispers had turned into soft murmurs of excitement and encouragement. People leaned forward, some holding their hats in their hands, others gripping fences or each other. The anticipation for the final move grew stronger. Children pointed excitedly, whispering among themselves about what might happen next, while adults exchanged knowing smiles, recognizing the skill and courage on display.
Sam took one final look at the river, the sun shining brilliantly, the wind blowing gently.
He could feel the eyes of the entire town on him. Every person waiting, wondering, and hoping that he would succeed. It was a moment that tested not just his skill, but his ability to inspire. And in that quiet pause, he felt the weight of expectation and the thrill of adventure, knowing that the next step would define the story that the town would tell for years to come. The crowd of Dry Creek held its breath as Sam guided Thunder to the center of the old wooden bridge. The horse moved steadily, his hooves clicking against the boards, and the wind rustled through the trees nearby. Every face in the town was fixed on the young cowboy. Children leaned forward, holding their breath, some covering their mouths in awe. Adults whispered softly to each other, their eyes wide with anticipation. Even Tom, the older man who had challenged Sam earlier, was leaning on his cane, trying not to show just how impressed he was. Sam looked at the river below, sparkling in the sunlight, its waters rushing past rocks and carrying small leaves downstream. He could hear the murmurs of the crowd and the distant whinny of horses in the stables. Everything felt tense and alive. The town seemed to move in slow motion, as if the world had paused to watch this moment unfold. He tightened his grip on the reins and adjusted his hat, then whispered to Thunder, "Steady now, we've got this." The horse responded with a gentle nod of his head, calm and sure. Sam knew that his bond with Thunder was more than just practice. It was trust built over months of working together. The horse trusted him, and that trust was a part of the stunt itself. Taking a deep breath, Sam began the approach. He moved slowly at first, feeling the boards beneath Thunder's hooves. The creaking was loud in the quiet air, echoing slightly off the nearby buildings. Every step was precise, every movement deliberate. The crowd remained silent, watching closely, some holding onto fences, some gripping each other's hands in anticipation. The children's eyes were wide with amazement, whispering softly, "He's doing it. He's really doing it." The horse moved carefully, balancing each step on the old planks. Sam's focus was intense. He could feel the tension in the air, the eyes of the entire town on him. But he didn't falter. Years of practice with horses and stunts had prepared him for this. He knew that fear could make people rush or make mistakes, but calmness and preparation could turn danger into skillful performance. Halfway across the bridge, Sam reached a gap between two boards that looked loose. His heart beat slightly faster, but his mind remained steady. He whispered to Thunder again, guiding him over the weak spot. The horse stepped carefully, landing perfectly on the next board. A soft sigh ran through the crowd, followed by a hushed, "Wow." The tension eased slightly, but everyone remained captivated. No one dared to blink. As Sam continued, the wind picked up, rustling his coat and hat, and making the ropes of the bridge sway slightly. It would have been unnerving for someone inexperienced, but Sam welcomed the challenge. He adjusted his balance, leaning slightly forward to match Thunder's rhythm, ensuring that neither horse nor rider was thrown off. Every small detail mattered. Every step counted. From the edges of the crowd, mothers held children closer, worried about the height of the bridge over the river. Fathers shifted nervously on their feet, some whispering words of encouragement. Even the mayor, who rarely left his office for anything, had come out to watch. He leaned against a post, his hands clasped together, feeling a mixture of worry and admiration. Tom's skepticism had faded completely. He leaned forward, his eyes following every movement of Sam and Thunder. "I didn't think he had it in him," Tom muttered quietly. "But he's proving me wrong." His voice carried a note of respect, and some of the townsfolk overheard. They nodded to each other, realizing that Sam's bravery was matched by skill and careful preparation. Sam reached the far end of the bridge, where the planks were slightly narrower and the ropes swayed a bit more in the wind. This was the trickiest part. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and the stunt could fail. But Sam stayed calm. He adjusted his posture, holding the reins firmly but gently, guiding Thunder with quiet confidence. The horse trusted him completely, moving in perfect synchronization with his rider. As he approached the final section, Sam could see the eyes of the crowd wide with amazement. Children pressed against fences, their hands gripping tightly, whispering in awe. Adults were silent, focused entirely on the cowboy and his horse. The air was filled with anticipation, as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for the moment that would make the story unforgettable. Then Sam did something unexpected. He lifted one hand slightly, letting go of the reins for a brief moment, showing his control and balance. The crowd gasped, some children squealing softly. But it was a daring gesture, but it highlighted the skill he had developed over time. Thunder moved smoothly, steady as ever, showing that trust and teamwork could make even the boldest moves possible. The horse's hooves struck the final boards, and Sam's heart pounded with excitement. He guided Thunder across the bridge with precision, each movement demonstrating calm control and confidence. The river below sparkled like 1,000 tiny diamonds in the sunlight, reflecting the courage and skill on display above. The wind carried the faint scent of grass and hay, mixing with the tension and excitement in the air. When Sam finally reached the far side of the bridge, he paused briefly. The crowd could hardly contain themselves. Children clapped softly, eyes wide with admiration. Adults nodded, impressed by the careful planning and skillful execution. Even Tom, who had been skeptical, gave a small, reluctant clap, acknowledging that the young cowboy had accomplished something extraordinary. Sam took a deep breath, feeling a wave of relief and triumph. He looked back at the bridge, then at the crowd. The eyes of Dry Creek were on him, and he could see the mixture of awe, excitement, and admiration in every face. He smiled, knowing that the moment was bigger than just a stunt. It was a lesson in bravery, preparation, and trust, both in oneself and in those who support you. As he guided Thunder back toward the center of the bridge for the final pass, Sam noticed how the town had changed in these few minutes. People who had been skeptical or worried were now leaning forward, fully engaged. Children were whispering excitedly to each other, imagining themselves performing brave feats one day. Adults were nodding, some exchanging smiles, recognizing the skill and courage that Sam had displayed. Sam took a final step toward the edge of the bridge. The sun glinted off his hat. The wind brushed his coat, and the river sparkled below. Every step was careful, precise, and deliberate. The townsfolk watched in silent anticipation, holding their breath for the last moment of the stunt. This was the culmination of preparation, courage, and trust. Finally, Sam guided Thunder off the bridge, landing safely on solid ground. The town erupted into applause, cheers, and shouts of excitement. Children ran forward clapping and laughing. Adults patted each other on the back, exchanging words of admiration. Even Tom, the older man, gave a hearty nod, his skepticism replaced by respect. The crowd surged forward slightly, eager to congratulate Sam. Mothers smiled proudly at their children, pointing out how courage and preparation could turn fear into triumph. Fathers shook their heads in amazement, commenting on the skill and calmness that Sam had shown. The mayor stepped forward, clapping warmly, recognizing that this moment would become a story told in Dry Creek for years to come. Sam dismounted Thunder slowly, giving the horse a gentle pat and a whispered, "Good job, buddy." Thunder whinnied softly in response, as if sharing in the triumph. The crowd watched this exchange, understanding that the success of the stunt was not just the cowboys, but also the horses. Trust, teamwork, and courage had made it possible. Tom stepped closer to Sam, his cane tapping lightly on the ground. "Well, I'll be," he said with a smile. "I didn't think you could pull that off, boy. You've got skill, courage, and brains all in one." Sam smiled humbly, nodding in appreciation. The crowd cheered again, recognizing the rare combination of bravery and wisdom that had just been displayed. Children ran forward to touch Thunder gently, asking Sam questions about how he had prepared and trained. Adults shared stories of their own experiences with horses, stunts, and courage. The town felt alive with excitement, its usual quiet routine replaced with energy and admiration. The story of the stunt was not just about danger, it was about preparation, trust, and confidence. As the sun continued to rise higher, casting golden light across the town, Sam and Thunder stood at the edge of the bridge, looking back at the crowd. He could see the wonder and excitement in their eyes, the inspiration that his courage had sparked. For a moment, Dry Creek felt like more than just a small town. It felt like a community united by admiration and shared experience. The stunt was complete, but the story had just begun. People would remember this day for years. The day a young cowboy and his horse had faced a challenge, trusted each other, and amazed the entire town. Sam had shown them all that bravery was not recklessness. It was careful planning, courage, and belief in oneself. The town had frozen in awe, and now they were cheering in celebration. The sun had climbed high in the sky over Dry Creek, casting a warm, golden light over the town. The excitement from Sam's daring stunt on the bridge was still alive, flowing through the streets like electricity. People were talking in groups, sharing what they had just witnessed, pointing at the bridge and gesturing animatedly. Even hours later, it was impossible for anyone to stop thinking about the courage, skill, and calmness Sam had shown. Sam dismounted Thunder slowly, giving the horse a gentle pat on the neck. "Good job, buddy," he whispered, smiling. Thunder responded with a soft whinny and a swish of his tail, proud and content, just like his rider. The bond between man and horse was clear for everyone to see. People gathered around, some clapping again, some smiling, and children pressing closer to touch the horse's smooth coat. Sam's humility shone as he allowed the crowd to share in the moment, letting them celebrate not just his bravery but also the trust between him and Thunder. The townsfolk began stepping closer, offering congratulations. Mothers smiled, holding children who were still wide-eyed with amazement. Fathers shook hands with Sam, saying, "I've never seen anything like it." Tom, the older man who had challenged him before, came forward. His face, usually lined with skepticism, now wore a proud, warm smile. "Well, I'll be," he said slowly. "You've done what I didn't think was possible. That was brave, smart, and perfectly done." Sam nodded respectfully, accepting the praise, but there was a quiet humility in his posture that made the crowd admire him even more. As the day went on, the excitement in Dry Creek didn't fade. People stopped their usual chores to gather in small clusters, talking about Sam and the stunt. Children reenacted the scene near the riverbank, taking turns pretending to ride a horse across an imaginary bridge. Adults laughed, remembered similar moments from their youth, and praised Sam's skill. The event had given the town something rare, a shared story of awe and inspiration that would last for years. Even the mayor, a stern man usually focused on paperwork and town regulations, came down to shake Sam's hand. "You've given this town a story to remember," he said with genuine warmth. "You've shown courage and skill. Dry Creek will be talking about this for a long time." Sam smiled and nodded, appreciating the acknowledgement, but keeping his focus on the community rather than the praise. Tom, still leaning on his cane, looked at the crowd. "I think the town needed this," he muttered. "We've been stuck in routine doing the same things every day. Seeing courage like that, it reminds us of what we're capable of." His words carried weight because he was respected in the town, and the others nodded quietly, realizing that even the simplest town could benefit from moments of daring and bravery. Children continued to gather near the bridge, pointing and whispering excitedly. "I want to be like Sam when I grow up," one little girl said. Another boy nodded eagerly, adding, "Yeah, and I want a horse like Thunder." Parents smiled, realizing that the stunt had inspired a new generation, showing them that bravery, preparation, and trust could achieve incredible things. Sam walked slowly through the crowd, shaking hands and listening to people's stories about how impressed they were. He made sure every child who wanted to touch Thunder's coat had a chance, and he answered every question with patience and kindness. "We practiced for a long time," he said simply. "You have to trust your horse, and you have to trust yourself. That's what makes it possible." His words resonated with the townsfolk, who understood that bravery wasn't about being reckless. It was about preparation, trust, and calm determination. By mid-afternoon, word of Sam's stunt had spread even further. Merchants, visitors from nearby towns, and even travelers passing through stopped by Dry Creek to see what had happened. The bridge had become the center of attention, and people stood along the edges talking excitedly about what they had witnessed. The small town, usually quiet and predictable, was now buzzing with energy, laughter, and admiration. The sheriff, who had watched carefully from a distance, walked over to Sam. "You've done something remarkable today," he said. Not many people could have stayed calm and skilled under that kind of pressure. Sam nodded, appreciating the acknowledgement, but he remained humble. "It's all about practice and trust," he replied simply. "And having a good horse helps too." The sheriff smiled and shook his head. "I'll make sure the whole county hears about this stunt." As the day moved toward evening, the townspeople began to gather around the saloon for a small celebration. People brought out food and drinks, sharing stories and laughter. Sam, still in his dusty clothes from the stunt, joined the group. He listened as people described the moment from their perspective. The fear, the excitement, the awe. Children acted out parts of the stunt, while adults laughed and praised Sam's skill and bravery. The energy in the town was warm, full of admiration and a sense of community pride. Tom, finally relaxing his posture, joined the crowd. "I've been around a long time," he said, "and I've never seen a stunt done with such calm, careful skill." "You've taught us something today, Sam. Courage isn't just about jumping. It's about preparation and trust." The crowd murmured their agreement. Even those who had doubted Sam earlier felt inspired by the lesson he had shown. As the sun began to set, casting golden and orange light across the town, the mood remained celebratory. Sam walked through the crowd, patting Thunder gently, smiling at children and adults alike. The town had changed in those few hours. Something that had begun as a simple stunt on an old wooden bridge had grown into a shared story of courage, trust, and inspiration. People talked, laughed, and remembered how they had felt watching the cowboy and his horse perform such a remarkable feat. Even the smallest details were noticed. A young girl whispered to her mother, "I liked how he trusted his horse." Her mother smiled, realizing that the stunt had taught the children a lesson that went beyond excitement. It had taught them patience, trust, and skill. A father commented to his friend, "I think Dry Creek needed this." Something to remind us that even a small town can have big moments. The words echoed through the evening as if the town itself had taken a deep, satisfied breath. Sam finally stepped back from the crowd and looked at the bridge. The boards, the ropes, the river below. It all seemed ordinary now, but he knew the difference they had made. What had seemed simple and quiet to the world had become a stage for courage, preparation, and skill. The people of Dry Creek would never see the bridge the same way again. It would forever remind them of the day a young cowboy and his horse amazed the entire town. Children ran to Sam, asking him to show small tricks they could try themselves. Sam knelt down, teaching them how to hold reins, how to guide a horse gently, and how to be calm and steady. He encouraged them to practice, to trust themselves, and to trust the people, or animals, they worked with. The lesson was simple, but the impact was profound. Even small moments of courage, when done with care, could inspire others. As darkness began to settle, the townspeople slowly returned to their homes, still talking about the event. Some lingered a little longer, sharing stories with neighbors, pointing to the bridge, and laughing about their own nervous reactions. The town felt alive in a way it hadn't before. There was a sense of pride, of community, and of shared experience. Sam had not just performed a stunt, he had brought the town together in excitement and admiration. Even later that night, people would talk about the day. Children would dream about being brave like Sam, imagining themselves riding horses and performing daring feats. Adults would recall the calm confidence he showed, the careful preparation, and the lesson that courage could be intelligent and skillful. Dry Creek had witnessed something extraordinary, and it would be remembered for years to come. Sam, standing quietly beside Thunder, watched as the last of the townsfolk headed home. The moon rose over the hills, casting a gentle silver light over the town. He felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, knowing that he had inspired his community, shared a story of courage and skill, and shown the value of preparation, trust, and calmness under pressure. The stunt was complete, but the impact would last a lifetime. As he led Thunder back toward the stables, Sam looked at the bridge one final time. It was just a bridge, old and weathered, but it had become a symbol of bravery, preparation, and inspiration. He knew that the story of Dry Creek would carry on. The children would talk about it, adults would laugh and share the tale, and the town would feel a sense of pride every time they walked past that bridge. The day ended not with loud fanfare, but with a quiet, warm feeling. The townsfolk went to bed with smiles on their faces, children dreaming of courage and skill, adults reflecting on bravery and trust. Sam and Thunder rested in the stables, both tired but satisfied. The sun had set on Dry Creek, but the story of the young cowboy's daring stunt would shine for years to come.